In this session, we're going to talk about kids that are precocious, kids that are a little bit too wise for their own britches. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this short. I looked up the word precocious because we've been doing a lot of gardening around here, and an article came up in my feed that said precocious flowering. You don't want your herbs to have precocious flowering. I went, I kind of get what they're saying, but what does the word precocious actually mean? So I looked it up, and the definition in the dictionary is flowering, fruiting, or ripening early as plants or fruit, bearing blossoms before good leaves, and unusually advanced or mature in development, especially mental development, and that was a definition that the dictionary gave for children. Children that are too mature for the age that they are. They know too much about the world, and they know too much, and they let all the adults around them know that they are wiser than they are. Proverbs 3 verse 7 says, "Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear Yehovah and depart from evil." A precocious plant, say it's my basil out there. My basil makes too many flowers before it has the leaves. I need those leaves so that I can harvest them for all of the yummy dishes I'm going to make this year. But if it starts to flower, then I'm not going to get the good harvest of leaves that I'm looking for. And in this sense, it's a bad thing, okay? The kind of fruit I want from my plant, I want seeds later. In time, that's a good thing. So I can have basil another year and plant more plants. But right now, I don't want it to flower too early, so I'm going to pinch that little plant a little bit and bring it down a notch or two. So, as in the same way, our children are often wise in their own eyes. And the fix for that is to fear Yehovah and depart from evil. And that's a job as a parent that I have to do. I have to enforce them to have a little healthy fear of parents. Parents, it's not all about love and graciousness and gentleness. Sometimes it's teaching my children what fear of Yehovah looks like. Say, you will obey and you will be afraid of me because I fear Yehovah and I have to give account to him. So this is what I said to do, and you will do it. And you will not be wise in your own eyes. I think we all know what a child looks like who's wise in her own eyes. We kind of get the idea, that little snobby sense that comes with them. I'm going to read some scripture though, so that you have no doubt in your mind what this child looks like. Psalm 14 verse 1 says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. And then they are corrupt and they've done abominable things, and there's none that does good." So you have a child that is wise in his own eyes or her eyes. They think, there's no one going to boss me around. Nobody needs to tell me what to do. If you see that attitude in your child, you have precocious flowering. Psalm 53 verse 1 says pretty much the same thing. It says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. And they are corrupt and have done abominable iniquity, and there is none who does good." So don't let your child be a fool. Proverbs 8 verse 5 says, "O you simple ones, understand prudence, and you fools, be of an understanding heart." So you're looking, the opposite of precocious flowering is someone who has an understanding heart. An understanding heart is a listener. They stop to ponder before they take actions. You can just see it in their mannerisms. You can see it in the wheels turning in their eyes. Proverbs 10 verse 8 says, "The wise in heart will receive commands, but a prating fool will fall." So you can tell your child is growing at a proper rate and is not wise in her own eyes if she receives commands from you. If you give her a command and she willingly and happily does it, then that's awesome. That's the best sign. But if you have a prating fool, what is a prating fool? I had to look that one up too. This was the day for looking things up. A prating fool, the word is sapa, and in Strong's it's 8193, and it means mouthy, talks excessively, babbles empty talk. So you have a mouthy kid. We all know what this looks like. That's a prating fool, and it says they will fall. We don't want this for our children. Proverbs 12:23. "A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims foolishness." So a child that is growing in a healthy way keeps some things to himself, not like secrets, but doesn't just babble in front of strangers and tell everything. Again, this is a symptom of a child that's wise in their own eyes. They have to make themselves look wise by talking. They're always talking. They're always going, well, I did this and I did that and our family does this, and would you like to know what we did? And that you have a child who has prudence or some discretion, and they know when to be silent, and they know when to listen, and they know when to show respect to those that are around them. Proverbs 15 verse 7, the lips of the wise disperse knowledge, but the heart of the fool does not do so. So if you have good, real knowledge coming out of your child, like your child actually does know what they're talking about, then they are wise, and they're not being wise in their own eyes. They're legitimately wise. They legitimately know something. But then there are children who don't know anything, but pretend they do all the time. And they talk about it. Again, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Proverbs 18 verse 2 says, a fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. So this is the child that has no interest in learning any subjects in school, but only telling you that they know that already. I don't need to know that. I know that already. Or, well, I don't really want to learn this today, Mom, because it's boring. I know this already. You know, even if you've learned it before, an understanding heart would be happy to talk about it again and maybe get it down a little better and have some humility. Does that make sense? Ecclesiastes 7:4 is the last one in the description. And it says, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. So I think you see a child that's only wanting to have fun, only wanting to live in that house of mirth, only wanting to have a great time in their life. If something is hard or thoughtful or takes a little bit of effort, they don't want anything to do with it. They want only to have fun. They're only there for a good time. That is a sign of precocious flowering, of someone who is wise in their own eyes. And they don't fear Yehovah, they don't obey their parents, and they do not depart from evil. Sometimes we encourage our plants to be precocious by not paying attention to them. That's what happens to the basil in the backyard. It is blooming because I literally forgot it was there and I didn't pay any attention to it. And so I think one of the things we need to do as parents is pay attention to our children. Be involved in their lives. Get off our phones, get off of Facebook, and be with the people we're with. Secondly, we give our children too many decisions. They're not ready for those decisions. They're wise in their own eyes because we've allowed them to make decisions they're probably not ready for. For instance, a child that chooses ice cream or hot dogs over a salad and good vegetables and a good healthy meal has been given that decision by the adults. We're the ones that gave the child that decision in the first place. The very first time it happened, it was our decision to let them have the decision because we didn't want to. But that child is not old enough, does not have wisdom, does not have nutritional training, does not know anything about what's good for them. They only go on their love of life and wanting to have a good time. Their pleasure, their lust, as it would say in 1 John. So don't give your children decisions that they're not ready for. Now, how do you know if they're ready for a decision? Well, if you have a child who, as it said in Proverbs 8:5, has an understanding heart, and in Proverbs 10 verse 8 is wise in heart and receives your commands, that means the child is ready for a little bit more. So you have a child who is willing to take an instruction from you. Child, I want you to eat your dinner before you may have anything else. Yes, Mommy, I'll do that. Wow, that's a child that's understanding in heart. And maybe you could give them some more freedom. Maybe you could give them a couple choices now because they've shown that they are willing to receive your commands. So what are some areas in which we give our children too many freedoms? First of all, I think we give our children too many physical freedoms, like where they go, when they go, what they're going to do when they get there. So you have a child that says, Mother, I'm going over here and I'm going to do this. Well, that's maybe not the right attitude. Maybe it should be more like, Mom, may I go over here and may I do this? And that gives you a second to think about it and see if this is a good thing or not, and to give your response. And it can often be yes, of course, if it's a good thing, but they've asked in a humble attitude. But a child that says, I'm doing this, Mom. Wait a second. Who's boss in this house? Wait a second, are you wise in your own eyes? Have you asked the permission of your parents whom you're to honor and obey? So think about where they're going, when they're going, and what they're doing. For instance, does your child choose all of his or her own activities all day long? Does your child choose what subjects they do first in school? Or do you choose? Does your child choose where he's going to sit and how he's going to sit, what toys he's going to play with right now, and when he's going to be done, and whether he picks them up or not. Does your child choose what he eats and when he goes to bed and when he wakes up? See, we can give our children choices in all of these categories, and it's not necessarily wrong to help your child learn decision-making skills. It's not what I'm saying. But without the understanding that is needed to make a wise decision, the decision should be made by the parents who have that decision. And the child should not be blooming before they're ready. They should not be precocious. They should not be wise in their own eyes. The other kind is verbal freedoms. And you can tell a child that might do what you say, but the tone of voice is that they know better. Okay, Mom, but that was really dumb. I wouldn't do it that way. That is not an attitude that you want. Or child, we're going to sit down and we're going to do math right now. Well, that's dumb. We should finish this first. They might not even say it's dumb. It might just be the tone of voice, the lack of humility. And those are the things that we watch for. If these things are happening, if you have a plant in your garden that is precociously blooming, then I would encourage you to take 6 weeks where you only give them commands. You make all the decisions for your child. Only 6 weeks, not the rest of their life. I'm not saying don't teach your child to make decisions and to be able to have understanding, but first, get the heart that is willing to submit and to receive your commands, as it said in Proverbs. Help them to become wise in heart, to understand that the fear of Yehovah comes first, and then knowledge can come, and they can learn things and make decisions that will be wise. They'll learn to seek godly counsel. But take 6 weeks. Say, you know what, you're going to do what I say for 6 weeks. And by the end of 6 weeks, if they are learning to obey with a good attitude without needing to know the reason why and without arguing with you that their way is better, then you can start to give them some reasons and help them understand and give them the thought process behind what you're doing. Otherwise, no explanation, just do it. Because I said so. That's good for 6 weeks. So that's the 6-week trial. Get those blooms off of there. Later, we want our children to bloom. Later, we want them to be wise. Not wise in their own eyes, but legitimately wise. Able to reproduce, able to make new seeds for the future. But for now, don't let your child be wise in his own eyes. You can definitely tell it from the attitude.